Hello, everyone. I'm here with Alex Langer, President and CEO of Sierra Madre Gold and Silver, as well as Greg Liller, who is Executive Chair and Chief Operating Officer. We're doing the backstage interview for the Silver Investor Forum. Alex and Greg, thanks for your time today to dig a little deeper on Sierra Madre.
Thanks a lot, Peter. Happy to chat again. Absolutely.
Thank you for having us.
It's my pleasure. So let's jump right into it. Your company has a flagship project. It's called Tepic, located in Nayarit, Mexico. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the background on how Tepic came to being a part of Sierra Madre.
Yeah, absolutely. So Greg and I started this company about 4 years ago. And the whole idea was to consolidate the area in and around Nayarit in Western Mexico. So Greg had worked there in the past, was a previous company. And Nayarit, there's a lot of production there, but it's kind of smaller scale, kind of private family mines. So the whole idea here was to kind of consolidate the area and add, because the infrastructure is great, and build out, production story, something that's going to grow from early stage to hopefully into a junior small tier producer. So Tepic, what interests us, at least right away, was the amount of work that had been done previously. The previous operator actually had a market cap of over 150 million during its peak, but more importantly, they spent about $20 million in today's value in the ground, including 31,000 meters of drilling, which we have every single one of those drill holes in our storage facility. They did a bunch of metallurgical work, also came out with a number of resources. I think there were 6 in total. So when Greg, brought the project to us right away, that's what kind of jumped out at me, at least from the capital market side. And I know Greg, taking a geological approach to it, noticed quite a few things. And I'll pass it over to Greg to talk about what he really liked about the project.
Yeah, I've got a checklist, as I've said before, that I go through. Infrastructure-wise, it couldn't be any better. But I also look for opportunities in reworking the old data. Maybe something was overlooked. I know on my first visits there, field visits, just the amount of alteration struck me as being very large in terms of how the system had been interpreted and presented in the past. I just saw a whole lot more structure, a lot more things going on there. So that was one of the things I look for. The other one is there something in the manner in which the previous resource estimations had been done that opened up an opportunity? People need to keep in mind that these are estimations. They're not calculations. And there's a lot of things, inputs that go into these things that can be treated differently. And so I saw a very overly complex structural model. Just didn't make sense, especially given the tectonic setting that it's in. I mean, you're actively having the plates from the west, from the Pacific Ocean, push in and underneath the continent there. So it's giving you compression that's directed in an eastwardly direction. But they had westerly directed thrust faults. It just didn't make sense. So there were other things that just struck me that maybe we should have a second look at this and see what kind of opportunities there are there, because they have been overlooked.
Well, that's really interesting. I mean, it's a question. It sounds like it's a matter of seeing some potential that clearly others have missed, and the specifics of an opportunity that comes perhaps with a bit of good timing as well, in terms of having this asset, it being mostly silver, and then being ready to act on it when the silver market came to you. That's actually kind of interesting. And you mentioned, Greg, a little earlier about infrastructure and how it couldn't be better. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that for us.
Well, I've worked and managed projects that are out in the middle of nowhere. Just a 10, 12-hour drive from any place. No grid electricity. You certainly didn't want to drink the running water. Sewage facilities were essentially the gully out back. And you just prayed for an early rainy season to wash everything out. Properties and projects like that are just, they're a lot more expensive to develop. They're more expensive to build a production facility at. So you got a good potential combined with a really good infrastructure. I mean, we're paved roads all except the last 3 kilometers into the project. If you got that combined with the potential, it just makes for a dream project.
That's great. I mean, I know that there is an existing resource on the project. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit, and then we could maybe talk a little bit about where you plan to take that going forward in terms of exploration, drilling, and some of the techniques that you're using to find more silver.
Yeah, it's a historic resource. It's available on CDAR. It's still up there. In fact, all the old tech reports are still up there. We have to go back to our cautionary statement in that, no, these are historical resources, and as the exchange requires, you say should not be relied upon. Right. But no, it came out at around a little over 7 million indicated, 3 million inferred ounces. There were earlier ones that had been larger than that. They used different criteria. There had been one done about 6 months prior to that was up more like 18 million overall, but it used a different criteria. It also looked at some open pit scenarios. It was a narrower in terms of the cutoff. But it just, again, this is one of the things I look at. Is there a big difference between these things? I know with Prime Mining, when I went on there as one of the founding directors and the COO, in reviewing the old work, it struck me that the most recently done resource estimate had some questions to it, shall we say. And as soon as we had gotten our initial funding and the company was able to afford the fancy software, it took about 30 seconds looking at it to know, no, I'm right. There's opportunity here. Right. And no, there was really more like 1.2 all categories, gold ounces there. I think it was 800 and some odd thousand in the measured and indicated, and the rest being over in the inferred. But that was more in line with the historic estimates. So again, it was, here's an opportunity. Like I said, they're resource estimations, and they're called an estimation for a reason.
No question. I mentioned earlier modern techniques. If I remember right, you're using some modern techniques on this project as you go forward, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about what those are and how they could change, what you ultimately and how much you ultimately find there.
I have kind of a novel approach. I believe in getting a good base map to begin with, which they never had. You got to have that, the topographic control. You got to know where you're at. And that had never been done. So there was no good, solid project geologic map to work on, which to me means might be a lot of stuff overlooked out there, which indeed it was. So that was the first thing we did. Then we got our regional reconnaissance mapping and sampling. That's still underway. We have a lot of detailed work going, but now trenching. It's not new. This is all just old fashioned, the way it used to be done. And since I'm old enough, it's the way I still do it. And we're putting it together, tying in targets.
Sure. So ultimately, Tepic has, Alex, you were mentioning that there are some other operators in the area. You may look to head towards the idea of maybe consolidating the area. What might that mean for how this ultimately gets developed?
Yeah, that's a great question, Peter. So we are actively looking at other assets. If you look at our prospectus, there's actually 5 million Canadian used for project acquisition, as well as development of those projects. We really like Tepic. It has been overlooked, especially with today's silver price, and what Greg and the team has done so far has been amazing. We've gone from 3 kilometers strike length to over 10.5. So just to touch on that a little bit more, the plan, we're permitted for 67 drill holes. We'll complete phase 1 of 20 drill holes, I think, this week. And then from there, we're actually applying to increase our drill permit from 67 to a couple hundred holes. So combine that with the trenching and the proper geological techniques. The goal is to have a resource report out by hopefully year end, if all goes well, if not push into Q1 of 2022. So we feel Tepic will be actually a really big part of kind of that production scenario we were talking about, a hub and spokes model. Tepic's, I guess, location is excellent, and it's really going to kind of be dependent on the other acquisitions that we do make, that we're getting quite a bit closer on as well, where the centralized facility will be. It's really inexpensive to truck a lot of this material once we're in production. So it gives us an opportunity to also set up like a modular facility. So if we start smaller, we can grow as Tepic expands, or as we bring on other projects, keeping the CapEx quite a bit lower. So we really feel Tepic will be kind of a big production center for us, combining with a few of these other areas that, if all goes well, we'll be able to acquire in the near term.
Well, excellent. I mean, we've certainly done the rounds and gotten a good overview of the company, the asset, the flagship, as well as the potential going forward in the area and what may come of the asset. Is there anything that either of you would like to leave viewers with before we close up?
Absolutely. Yeah, as I just mentioned, we've just finished up our phase 1 drill program. So we're gonna have some news flow, which is great. And we've also started the trenching on those new kind of 6-7 kilometers of strike that we found recently. So there'll be news from both of those as we progress into the 200 drill hole campaign, and also keep an eye on for acquisitions, which are getting very close and quite exciting.
Excellent. Well, we'll certainly keep a close eye on how things develop, and sounds like some exciting times at Sierra Madre.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for your time.